Good morning, Mr. Joyce. My name is Slade. I shall be representing you in court.
My dear chap, how pleased I am to meet you.
Indeed. Please be seated, Mr. Joyce. You're keeping well?
Never better.
Looking after you all right?
Quite. I like the uniform. It's rather tasteful and very well made. And the food here is excellent. Much better than they gave me in Belgium. And are you well yourself?
Quite well, thank you, Mr. Joyce. Now, I need not tell you, we have a difficult case ahead of us.
Hopeless, some would say.
Not I, Mr. Joyce.
Foregone conclusion, according to my charming guard, Mr. Jones.
No case is a foregone conclusion in a British court, Mr. Joyce. We leave that kind of thing to the Nazis.
Touché.
I meant nothing personal.
Of course not, my dear chap. One is, after all, a Nazi, and in view of the recent outcome of the war, one can expect, shall we say, a certain coolness from the winning side.
Perhaps, but we are still British, and you shall be facing justice in a British court.
I expect no less, although one may debate what is meant by British justice, of course, but perhaps we grow too philosophical. Perhaps we should proceed to business, since our time together is short.
Perhaps so. Now, the facts in the case are indisputable, I believe. You are accused of making propaganda broadcasts for German national radio, Deutsche Rundfunk, with the intention of undermining the morale of the British nation whilst it was at war with Germany. Is that correct?
Undermining the morale of the nation wasn't quite what I intended, but I certainly broadcast for Germany.
What did you intend?
I merely intended to undermine the politicians that caused the war and the Jews that masterminded it.
I see.
Exactly. I love Britain. I love the British people. There are no finer people in the world. I was merely hoping that the nation would reject Churchill and join with Greater Germany in defeating the Bolsheviks.
Many people would say you had a rather strange way of exhibiting this love.
Many people would be wrong.
Clearly, your broadcasts were intended to aid the enemy of Britain. Certainly your employers at Deutsche Rundfunk believed the broadcasts would help that cause.
Are they to be called as witnesses?
I very much doubt it. They may well be facing trials of their own.
Interesting. Is there to be a show trial?
Those implicated with the establishment and running of the concentration camps will be facing trial, yes. There may be also various war crimes trials. I am told the trials are to be held in Nuremberg.
The symbolism is not lost on me.
Indeed. Perhaps we might continue with consideration of your own defence. I fear our time is somewhat limited.
Absolutely. Merely making polite conversation, my dear Slade.
I believe before the war you were a member of the British Union of Fascists,
Yes.
and you attended numerous rallies for the fascist cause, eventually acquiring a high status in the organisation.
I did. I also spoke at many rallies. You see, my degree is in English, and from my Irish father, I have inherited somewhat the gift of the gap.
Could you be more explicit?
Sorry, what I meant to say is I have a certain fluency with the language, if that's any help.
Thank you. I believe you gained a first-class honours from Birkbeck College.
Oh, yes, well, modesty prevented me from mentioning it.
I believe also that the rallies at which you spoke frequently descended into fisticuffs.
I'll say, I got this at a rally. A communist tried to cut my throat. Couldn't aim straight. The communists, they used to turn up to our rallies with razor blades embedded with potatoes, socks with bricks in them, knives, broken bottles, anything they could.
How did you counter this violence?
With our own violence. Only we were better organised. We had Biff Boys. Biff Boys, you know, young lads recruited from gyms and youth clubs. We used to arm them with rubber truncheons. They soon put pay to any protesters. Mostly he put me in charge of the I Squad, the security chaps. I warned them never to hit women and only hit men when attacked, which is rather difficult since it was most of the women that were throwing the razor blade of potatoes while the men stood back, but it worked. Oh, and once the police turned up, well, we stopped fighting and let them handle it.
That seems wise.
Absolutely, since most of the police were on our side.
Did you take any steps for your own personal protection?
Well, I kept a a gun in the biscuit tin on the kitchen dresser. Margaret found it once and got rather cross about it. No idea why.
One can only speculate.
Women can be so difficult to understand, don't you think? Anyway, after a while, the BUF sacked me. Funds dried up. They got rid of me and about another half dozen, so I had to find work.
Which was?
Private tutoring. Angus McNabb and I, we set ourselves up as private tutors, teaching English. Not that successfully. Most of our clients were foreigners, but they wouldn't accept coloureds or Jews. Margaret was rather cross about that as well. She said apart from anything else, it was bloody tactless.
Perhaps so. It certainly must have limited your clientele somewhat.
Not at all. It gave me more time for politics. I used to give speeches in Hyde Park Corner. Champagne may bubble and rose petals bestrew the hills of the declining scions of nobility, but no benefit will accrue to us. National Socialism should be revolutionary in its methods. It should break free from the twin shackles of Marxism and capitalism. Above all, it should evolve out of the British soil. Therefore, in true respect of the great German leader's attempts against international Jewish finance and its other self, international Jewish communism, I would gladly say, Heil Hitler! And at once, part company with him. It would be a pitiable insult to such a great man to flatter him with an imitation that he has always disdained. His way is for Germany, ours is for Britain. Let us tread our paths with mutual respect, which can be rarely increased by borrowing. Yet, Britain should not hate or persecute the Jews. We should treat them as a foreign people like any other, as the state would in the case of any well-disposed foreigner who would harm nobody and benefit some.
So you regarded British Jews as foreigners?
Well, it's how they regard themselves, isn't it?
And you would allow them to stay provided they were, as you put it, well-disposed?
Naturally, it was a hardly unpopular view at the time, you know.
I think you may find that public opinion has changed somewhat in the intervening years.
Public opinion? The public have the opinion they are given.
Perhaps we might move on. Let me explain. You are accused of treason. For that to be proven in a court of law, the prosecution must demonstrate that, first of all, you owed a debt of allegiance to the Crown during the time of the acts described. And secondly, that those acts were such as to constitute, if I may use a legal term, adhering to the King's enemies. I think we may safely say that your broadcasts would be construed as adhering to the King's enemy, may we not?
We may.
There therefore hangs the question of allegiance to the Crown. Now, for that to be the case, you would have to be a British subject or someone who had an expectation that the United Kingdom would provide protection where necessary.
I am, of course, a naturalised German.
So I have been informed.
Case dismissed, I believe.
Not quite. There is a witness who claims that he heard you broadcast in 1939, whereas you were not a German citizen until 1940. Is there any substance in that accusation?
No. At least I don't think so.
He seems very sure. The witness is a strong one. He is a police inspector in Special Branch, an Inspector Hunt, who states that he recognised your voice, having heard you speak at numerous rallies.
It's possible, of course. Hard to remember. Anyway, don't they need two witnesses?
Sadly, no. Under the Treason Act of 1351, that was the case. But the Act was modified earlier this year to allow the testimony of only one witness.
I feel honoured.
I am sure the prosecution could find more witnesses, should the law require it.
Of course they could. British justice, as you say, or the justice of the victor, perhaps. Still, there we are. You think I'm sunk, don't you?
By no means, Mr. Joyce. British courts do not hang a person lightly. And the jury would have to find you guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. And in cases such as this, the direction of the judge on the finer legal points is likely to prove crucial.
Not to mention the fact, as you most eloquently put it, I am, beyond all reasonable doubt, innocent.
Come, Mr. Joyce. We know that you made the broadcasts, and we have a reliable witness who says you did so before becoming a German citizen.
But what you have failed to account for, Mr. Slade, is that I have never been a British citizen.
But Mr. Joyce, you held a British passport.
Which I obtained under false pretenses. I was born in New York, Mr. Slade, not in Galway. I am, or was, an American citizen. Ah, Slade, good to see you. Do come in. Oh, you are in. Have a seat.
Good afternoon, Mr. Joyce. I trust you're keeping well?
Most decidedly. Yourself?
I'm in excellent health, thank you. May I inquire as to what it is you're reading? It appears to be in a foreign language.
Not much gets past you, Mr. Slade. Yes, I'm reading the works of Shakespeare in Dutch. The ideal language to read the works of Shakespeare, don't you think? Apart from English, of course.
I fear I could not say. My languages are confined to Latin and Greek.
Hiatus val deflendus, my dear Slade, if I may say so.
I want greatly to be deplored? Perhaps so. I believe you have several languages yourself.
Well, I have Latin and Greek, like you. Classical, of course, though not demotic. In modern languages, I have French, German and Italian. Naturally, if one has German and English, Dutch presents no problem, especially in reading.
Most impressive. I had no idea you were such a linguist. Now, I've come to see you rather urgently to clear up this question of your nationality.
I see.
Our entire case may depend upon it. You see, as an American, you could not be tried for treason against the Crown, as you were not a Crown subject at the time of the broadcasts.
So I believe.
Moreover, the American authorities would have no claim on you, since by the time the United States of America entered the war, you were a German citizen.
I wasn't broadcasting to America anyway.
The nature of wireless is that it becomes scattered widespread, Mr. Joyce. If I may say so, the word once spoken takes wing.
Well put, Mr. Slade.
We have requested a copy of your birth certificate from the American authorities. I believe that none other than Mr. J. Edgar Hoover himself has taken responsibility for investigating the question of your birth there.
I say, how very flattering.
If we can prove your American nationality, I see no basis upon which a successful prosecution could be entertained. However, there is still the question of your British passport.
Well, let me see. I've always seen myself as British. I've always been a subject of the Crown for as long as I can remember, ever since I departed for Germany in 1939.
Yet you told me that you applied for and obtained a British passport via the expedient of making a false declaration as to your place of birth. You then used it to escape to Germany just before the outbreak of hostilities.
It's better than being interned like Mosley and his crew.
What made you aware that you might be interned?
I had a tip-off from a friend.
A friend in military intelligence?
I cannot say.
Come, Mr. Joyce, you must understand that our conversations remain between the two of us.
Walls may not have ears, Mr. Slade, but I'll be entirely unsurprised if they do have microphones.
we shall leave aside the identity of your informant and continue with our discussions. What was your next move?
You see, let's start in 1938. We all knew war was coming, so Margaret and I, we decided to clear out. We went to, we opted for Dublin in the Irish Free State, since we thought that would remain neutral for the duration. So I renewed my passport and we prepared to leave.
What prevented you from leaving?
Neville Chamberlain, coming back from Munich with this scrap of paper, declaring that there'd be no war, and we're like chumps, we all believed him.
What happened in 1939?
Now that's when I got the tip-off. So, well, I decided that we would go to Germany, and my passport was just about valid, so that's when we left.
Not Ireland?
I have a somewhat checkered history in Ireland. I was a spy for the British during the Black and Tans.
You could only have been a youth at the time.
What the Americans call a teenager. Anyway, the IRA tried to assassinate me, so I had to leave for London.
Dear me, you certainly seem to have led a colourful life, Mr. Joyce.
So we decided to look up an old friend, Christian Boer, in Germany, to see what might be done. He was rather horrified to see me, rather disappointing, don't you know. He thought we'd be interned straight away, but then I bumped into another chum, and they got me the job at the Reichsstrand Funkhaus, and that's when everything began to look up.
When did you commence working for the Reichsrund? I do apologise, I have no German, I'm afraid.
Neither did Margaret. We used to call it the Skunk House.
I see. On what date did you commence broadcasting for the Skunk House?
Can't really remember. It might have been September the 10th, or it could have been a few days after, but it certainly wasn't later than the 18th.
This may be a rather important question, Mr. Joyce. I believe that the prosecution may try to persuade the jury that you were broadcasting for the Germans during a period in which you still held a valid British passport.
Not valid, not a valid passport.
That's as maybe. It's what the prosecution may well allege.
I see. Well, all I was doing was broadcasting news bulletins. Hardy propaganda, no more so than any other news bulletin during wartime.
I see. Well, that would hardly be regarded as high treason. Unpatriotic, perhaps, but certainly not treason in the sense of adhering to the king's enemies.
Oh, certainly not. The Gestapo came round to arrest me the next day.
Really?
Oh, yes, they were rounding up all British nationals. Luckily, they came early when I was at the Skunk House, and Margaret told them I was at work.
Surely they'd have simply returned at a later date?
No. My boss put in a good word for me, and they left me alone. Perhaps it would have been easier if I had been caught by the Germans and then released by the Russians 5 years later. Better than becoming Brixton Bill, waiting for the hangman.
The Russians may not have been as benevolent as you imagine.
Perhaps not. Tell me, did people like my broadcasts?
I believe they did. Well, especially at first. People were very interested in gaining an alternative viewpoint of the war, you see. So they were keen to tune their wirelesses into almost anyone offering a differing perspective. People realised, you see, that the BBC was censored.
Oh, as were we. Goebbels used to give us the angle, and we would slant the news that way. I'm interested to know that people were not prevented from listening to my broadcasts.
Certainly not, Mr. Joyce. England is the nation of free speech. We may not like what you say, but we will defend to the death your right to say it.
Decadent, of course. Other countries are not so foolish. In Germany, if you listened to the BBC, it meant a jail sentence. Come to think of it, I expect some of those people are still serving those sentences. Tell me, as a legal man, do you think anything will be entitled for an early release?
That's not an area of which I have any knowledge, I regret to say.
I'm glad people listen to my Germany calling show. I was rather proud of it myself.
Well, it was certainly popular. or at least, shall we say, a great many tuned their wirelesses in to listen to Lord Haw Haw. Whether it met with the universal approval or not, I could not say. It was certainly widely discussed.
And what did people say about me?
I'm not sure. I'm at liberty to say.
Oh, come, Mr. Slade. We're old friends now. I'm sure you realise that I won't betray a confidence.
Well, let me see. I think that people wanted to disbelieve you, but found themselves half believing despite themselves.
Go on.
Well, one hesitates to say, you certainly did acquire a somewhat larger-than-life reputation. People believed you had a close association with the Luftwaffe, for example.
And how did this close association manifest itself?
People believed that you could direct the Luftwaffe to carry out pinpoint raids on specific targets. Mr. Joyce, you must appreciate, I'm telling you all of this at second hand. I myself, I must tell you, did not hear any of your broadcasts.
Oh, my dear Slade, I'm sorry that I cannot count you among my loyal fans, but then I suppose as a legal man, one can hardly have your ears expressed to the wireless, listening to the enemy's propaganda.
However, one cannot avoid overhearing the conversations of one's junior clerks.
Young chaps do like to gossip.
Did you not once broadcast that there was a certain town hall clock running 3 minutes slow? But it need not be corrected, since the Luftwaffe were to destroy it that night.
Oh, the power of rumour. I say, my reputation has clearly grown in the telly.
How so?
Because, my dear Slade, I made no such accusation in any of my broadcasts. Pure fabrication by the rumour mongers of England, and, dare I say, the consequence of allowing freedom of speech.
And did you not once direct the Luftwaffe to destroy a certain pub in Shoreditch where you'd been involved in a fracas?
Of course not. Don't you think that Reich Marshal Goering had better things to do than avenge me?
As you say, rumour is rife in wartime.
Particularly when one doesn't have a reliable source of the truth. The rumours fill the gaps, as it were.
You may be right there, Mr. Joyce.
Which is why rumour mongers were severely punished in the Reich. Freedom of speech must have its limits, Mr. Slade, if the state is to retain control of its citizens.
Perhaps so. But on that note, I see our time is up. I shall return tomorrow.
Margaret. Ah, my dear Slade, good to see you. I was just thinking about you. Sorry, I've just had a letter from my wife. Are you keeping well?
Indeed so. Mr. Joyce, I too have news for you.
Splendid, splendid.
A date has been set for your trial. It will commence on the 17th of September of this year.
I see. Only 3 weeks or so from today, then.
Indeed. My colleagues and I have been rehearsing our argument. Would you like me to share our thoughts with you?
Most certainly.
Well, first of all, and one might be forgiven for stating the obvious, but that you are innocent until proven guilty beyond all reasonable doubt.
Naturally.
The implication is not quite so obvious, however. It is for the prosecution to make their case. The onus is not upon us to prove anything at all.
But?
I beg your pardon?
I sensed a but missing from your statement.
Indeed. We are compelled to produce evidence that will refute the prosecution's case. And to that end, we have been successful in obtaining a copy of your birth certificate from the American authorities. It does indeed show that you were born in Brooklyn, New York, on the 12th of April 1906. We also have evidence that your parents were American citizens.
Only naturalised, as they would say. My father was as Irish as the pigs of Dublin, and my mother was from Lancashire.
That's as may be, but for the purposes of this trial, This proves beyond all doubt that you were an American citizen at the time of your birth. We also have documentary evidence that you are now a German citizen, and that you have been so since 1940. Yet, between 1933 and the time of your naturalization as a German citizen, you held a British passport. You told me it was obtained by the expedient of making a false declaration as to your place of birth. Would you care to expand upon those circumstances?
Yes, of course. You see, I've always seen myself as British. My mother and father, they returned to Ireland when I was very small. I have hardly any recollection of the United States at all. I must have been about, 3 years old?
However, you were not British.
But in my heart, I'm British. I spied for the British against the IRA. I joined the British Army when I was 15 years old, although they soon kicked me out when they found out my real age. They used to tease me by whistling God Save the King, knowing that I'd jump to attention on every occasion.
Surely you realised they were having a joke at your expense?
It's only a bit of fun, so I carried on with it. Well, there's little else to laugh at in army life, don't you think?
You may be right there, Mr. Joyce, although my service for king and country was some time ago.
A veteran of the Great War, perhaps. May I shake your hand on that account?
However, I did not see any action. I was a lowly lieutenant in the Judge Advocate General's division.
Nevertheless, a true defender of your country. He who dons the uniform of your country dons the mantle of his worth, and none shall gainsay it any further.
Perhaps we might return to the question of your passport?
Of course. When I joined the British Union of Fascists in 1932, membership was only open to the British subjects, and of course, well, for a new member, no one looked too deeply, but in 1933 I decided to normalise the situation, so I applied for a British passport.
It did not occur to you to naturalise yourself as a British subject?
No, I mean, I can hardly knock on Mosley's door and say, excuse me, I'm American, but I'll be British in a week or two. No. You had to be British to your very core to be a member of the BUF. Nothing else would do.
I see.
So, on my passport application, I said that I was born in Galway, and my father backed it up. He destroyed all evidence that he was an American. He went down to the back garden and burnt his naturalisation papers, my birth certificate, everything.
If I recollect correctly, there was no requirement in Ireland to register births at the time.
Correct. So no one could disprove it. And therefore I became a British citizen, not just in 1933, but in all the preceding years.
This may present us with a problem in court.
Mr. Slade, may I say something very important to you?
Of course.
If things should go badly for me and I should be hanged, I would rather be hanged as an Englishman than released as an American. I am trusting in English justice to believe that what I did in the earnest and holy belief that it was in the best interest of England that I should. Despite everything, I am to my very core English.
The law may take a similar view of your status, but not that of your actions, Mr. Joyce.
And that is a risk I feel compelled to take. Now then, I've been having a think about the jury.
The jury, Mr. Joyce?
Will I be able to challenge any Jewish jurors?
We might try.
How will I know them?
Well, that is straightforward. When they take the oath, they will either put a hat on or cover their head with their left hand.
I say, do you think it would help my defence if I took the oath in the same way?
Very droll, Mr. Joyce. I shall return tomorrow.
Until then. Margaret, Margaret.
Good morning, Mr. Joyce. I trust I'm not disturbing you.
You are early this morning.
I wish to rehearse some of the arguments we may use in court. In particular, there's the matter of your wife, Margaret.
What about Margaret?
It may be useful for us to explore the nature of your relationship.
What has Margaret got to do with my guilt or innocence?
She, like you, worked for the radio station. She, like you, made propaganda broadcasts for the Germans. The prosecution may seek to demonstrate that she, if I may use a metaphor, was playing Trilby to your Sven Gard.
That she was under my control, you mean?
Indeed.
You clearly do not know my wife, Mr. Slade.
That is quite true. Perhaps you might elaborate.
She's a very difficult person to control. Believe me, I've tried on several occasions. She had many lovers, you see. Half of Berlin seems to have been in bed with her at some time or another.
I see.
No, you do not see. You do not see at all. How could you possibly understand what it's like to be cuckolded about the place with a bitch like that who fell on her back at every opportunity?
Mr. Joyce.
How could you even begin to understand? A small group of English and Irish working for the right, working for the greater good, and there was she, flaunting herself about the place, embarrassing me and her country.
Most difficult for you.
Oh, well, you can be sure. I knew how to deal with that kind of thing.
You did?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I beat her black and blue. See how a Nicky von Bisak liked her then? She soon came crawling back. She always did.
Did these beatings have the desired effect?
Temporarily. We got a divorce eventually. It's easier to get a divorce in Germany than it is here. Quite simple, in fact.
Mr. Joyce, are you telling me that you are divorced from Margaret Joyce?
Oh, no. We soon remarried. Couldn't get enough of each other. Nicky von Bisak had disappeared, got himself killed, or married somebody else. Well, I've come to think of it, he married somebody else. Meg was quite cut up about it.
How long between the divorce and the remarriage?
Oh, not long. You see, as soon as we left the divorce courts, we sort of leapt into each other's arms. We went for dinner and, well, pretty much carried on from where we left off. And after a few months, I asked her to move back home with me.
I trust the relationship became more harmonious?
Oh, not a bit of it, old chap. We used to have some wonderful furniture smashing rounds. A few fist punches and bits with a rolling pin. Oh, yeah, quite the jolly home. Normally, drink had been taken, of course. Alcohol fueled a lot of our fist fights and arguments. Well, you know what it's like.
Yeah, I am a teetotaler, Mr. Joyce.
Band of hope, chap, eh? Let me explain. Margaret sober was pleasant, quite delightful, but with a drink in her, she could be amorous or violent. In both cases, difficult to manage, especially when I'd had a few myself, so I'd fetch her a forkny one, and that'd be the end of that till the next time.
I see.
Do you, old chap? Not quite like your home life, I'd wager.
Quite.
And, of course, we both worked at the skunk house, which put an extra dimension to our marriage. Turning up to work with bruised knuckles and black eyes gave plenty of opportunity for gossip amongst our colleagues. Well, couldn't be helped. We both liked to drink, and, well, there was little else to do in Berlin.
I would imagine that would be quite a precarious existence for you.
Strangers in a strange land, Mr. Slade. But we were paid well, and our right marks bought us plenty of French wine, cognac, and Dutch Genever, which we partook liberally.
I understand. Well, I think I have enough information for today. I shall return when there is more to discuss.
I await your visits with bated breath.
Quite.
Ah, Slade, I'm glad you came to see me.
I thought it might be appropriate to discuss this morning's events in court.
I thought it went rather well, don't you? Especially the part when you explained that I'm not and never have been a British citizen. I thought you handled that rather well, if you don't mind, if you don't mind me saying so.
You're most kind.
Oh, and when you asked for charges to be dropped, where? You can imagine my surprise at the audacity of that move. Rather a blitzkrieg, I thought.
Sadly, Justice Tucker thought otherwise.
I say, I rather enjoyed watching the arguments. Old hot cross buns, he's jolly good.
If by that you're referring to Mr. Shawcross, I am compelled to agree. He is, after all, the Attorney General.
Still, I think we have all the arguments on our side, don't you? I've never been a British subject as much as I'd like to be.
The matter has moved on somewhat, Mr. Joyce. His Lordship is considering not whether you were or are a British subject. That question is quite settled. He is considering whether, despite your nationality, you owed your allegiance to the Crown.
I thought he dealt with that rather well too. Accusing me of wrapping myself in the Union Jack in order to escape to Germany. I think that's how he expressed it.
Let us hope that Mr. Shawcross's more colourful observations do not sway the judge. He's already managed rather cleverly to sway the jury.
How do you mean?
You will recollect that he continually reminded them that they had heard your voice upon the wireless, and that the speeches you made were intended to undermine morale in our country's darkest hour, that he felt sure, he knew they would put all such thoughts aside, thus assuring, human nature being what it is, that they would most decidedly not put such thoughts aside.
But surely he must realise that the justice of our argument. I mean, look, if I was a Chinaman and I asserted that I was British, I could do so as much as I like, but I'm still a Chinaman. It takes two parts to make me a British subject, myself and the Crown.
I fear you may be missing the point, Mr. Joyce.
Well, how so?
The question hinges not on your nationality, but on whether you were relying on the protection of the Crown and therefore owed your allegiance to the King.
Rather a fine point of law, don't you think?
Yet a crucial one.
Hanged on a comma, perhaps.
If by that you're referring to the case of Sir Roger Casement, there is no parallel.
Except on the determination of the government to see me hanged.
Whatever the government may wish, the courts act independently. We must still place our faith in British justice.
So, what happens next?
I confidently expect that Mr. Shawcross will argue that your action in obtaining a passport via deception indicated that you wished to be treated as a British subject, therefore accepting not only the protection of the Crown, but also all obligations that accompany such protection.
Your response?
I shall respond that all such obligations ceased the moment that you left British soil, that you were free of any duty of allegiance, as would be any other foreign national, when returning to their home or to any part beyond these shores.
Will it stick, do you suppose?
If by that do you mean, will the judges accept the argument, well, I could not possibly say. Certainly it's the case that no British court has jurisdiction to try foreign nationals for crimes committed in other countries. Except in the case of Pearson, of course. You are not yet charged with being a pirate, have you?
Give them time, old chap. Have we got any other shots in the locker?
I suspect that Mr. Shawcross will argue that you yourself, believing yourself to be English, knew you were committing a crime. I shall counter that the belief of the alleged criminal is entirely irrelevant. Were I to purloin an umbrella and mistakenly think I'd taken someone else's umbrella, but discover that I'd accidentally purloined my own umbrella, I scarcely think a case would lie.
I hardly think you'll go around purloining umbrellas, Mr. Slade.
And one wouldn't imagine it would be a crime that would pay very much.
Stick to the law is my advice. Well, we wait until morning.
We do indeed.
Reasons that you are at liberty to share?
My clerk was a friend of Mr. Shawcross's clerk. I believe they shared fire-watching duties together at Lincoln's Inn during the late hostilities.
So we have a spy in the enemy camp?
And one would not have exactly phrased it that way, but I do have some information.
You leave me in some suspense, Mr. Slade.
My clerk tells me that Mr. Shawcross has consulted with an eminent professor of constitutional law, Professor Morgan. Professor Morgan has advised him, in the company of the Director of Public Prosecutions, that the prosecution case has no chance of succeeding unless the judge is prepared to make new law.
I say.
One, of course, can never know how a judge will respond, far less a jury, and therein lies the rub.
Surely it's just a formality that they're going to drop the charges.
Not quite. There is still the question of your British passport to be considered.
But they're not going to hang me for lying on a passport application.
Naturally not. You are not charged with that offence, and in any case, the penalty for such an act is a fine of 2 shillings and 6pence. No, the problem is that it demonstrates that you were expecting the protection of the Crown and therefore had an obligation of allegiance.
I see.
My clerk also tells me that the lawyers of Crown Court are running a small book. They're offering odds of 50 to 1 for your acquittal.
Would you mind putting a small wager on my behalf?
Mr. Joyce, I fear that would exceed my brief.
I thought that might be the case. Oh well.
I have something else to show you. I've been handed this note. You will notice that it is unsigned, and therefore I cannot verify its authenticity.
I see.
This confirms that you were indeed to be served with a detention order under the Defence of the Realm Act on the 3rd of September 1939, just as you told me a few weeks ago. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that why you left the country?
Yes.
So you were compelled to leave, by any means necessary, or become a political prisoner. Mr. Joyce, this may be crucial to your defence. So my next question is extremely important. How did you know that the detention order was about to be enforced?
I thought I explained this to you when we first met.
I must be clear on all the details if I'm to use this in court.
Mr. Slade, what I'm about to tell you must be held in the strictest confidence.
Of course.
I have a friend, you see, in MI5, who informed me I used to work for him.
In MI5?
Just so. You see, if I was to bring my friend into this, it could cause the most awful difficulties.
How so?
My wife, Mr. Slade, she is also in prison and may face the same charges as me.
But she is a German citizen. She became so when you were both naturalised.
She began broadcasting before I became a German citizen.
I see. So she has, in fact, committed treason by broadcasting for the Germans whilst she was still a British citizen.
There you have it. My friend has assured me that if I keep MI5 out of my defence, they can help her get quietly released, or maybe even escape, whichever is easiest.
You feel sure you can trust this man?
As I say, he's a good friend, a close friend.
You are adamant upon this issue?
I am.
We shall see what this afternoon brings. Mr. Joyce, we must return to court for final argument.
Right you are, old chap.
Are you adamant that we cannot use the note I showed you earlier? I'm am convinced, even at this late stage, that I will be allowed to enter it in evidence in view of the seriousness of the charge against you.
I'm quite certain. Nothing can persuade me to betray a friend, still less Margaret.
Very well. We shall use the materials at hand.
There really is no alternative. Any true Englishman would do the same, you know.
Perhaps. Shall we?
We shall. Mr. Slade, how goes the jury?
They have returned. We must go back up.
That's a rather rapid decision. Perhaps they thought that your Inspector Hunt was less reliable than you first thought.
You might be right, Mr. Joyce.
Well, let's find out, shall we? I fear today has not gone well for me.
There is the appeal, Mr. Joyce, and that's what counts.
But you do not have the experience I have of living in a fascist state. There is only one true verdict, Mr. Slade, just one.
You have so little faith in British justice.
Every faith in justice, none in law. It took them 15 minutes to make a decision. Barely enough time for a cup of tea. And at that time, they have sealed my fate. In their lights, they have justly condemned an enemy.
We shall nonetheless enter an appeal.
Take as long as you like. I expect no less. I am quite happy here in Wandsworth Prison.
Even in the condemned cell.
My jailer, the amiable Alfred, assures me that as a condemned man, I'll be entitled to 1 pint of beer and 10 cigarettes a day, all courtesy of the British taxpayer.
One would hope that that might be of some comfort to you.
It is. Now, if you'll excuse me, I am writing a letter to my wife.
Yeah.